Policies of Agrarian Reform. In this topic, we will be discussing about agrarian reform efforts under Marcos, post-1986 agrarian reform, and Carper and the future of agrarian reform in the Philippines. Agrarian reform efforts under Marcos. In 1972, President Marcos declared martial law and wiped out the landlord-dominated Congress. Through his technocrats, he was able to expand executive power to start a fundamental restructuring of government, including its efforts in solving deep structural problems of the countryside. On October 21, 1972, President Marcos signed Presidential Decree No. 27 or the Code of Agrarian Reform of the Philippines, decreeing the emancipation of tenants from the bondage of soil, transferring to them the ownership of the land they till and providing the instrument and mechanism. Since only rice lands were the focus of agrarian reform, some landlords found a way to avoid the program by changing their crops to be exempted, and elites still found their way to maintain their power and dominance. Landlessness increased, which made it all more difficult for the program to succeed because landless peasants were excluded from the program. Under the reign of Marcos, we also have the Masagana 99 or the Rice Self-Sufficient Program, where farmers were able to borrow from banks and purchase 3-hectare plots of lands and agricultural inputs.
Post to 1986 Agrarian Reform. On July 22, 1987, Aquino issued Presidential Proclamation 131 and Executive Order 229.
Which outlined her land reform program.
On 1988, Congress passed Republic Act No. 6657 or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law or the CAR and the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program or the CARP.
It enabled the redistribution of agricultural lands to tenant farmers from landowners who were paid in exchange by the government through just compensation and allowed them to retain not more than 5 hectares. CARP accomplished very little during the administration of Aquino. It only accomplished 22.5% of land distribution in 6 years.
CAR and CARP under term of President Ramos.
Despite the limitation and constraints, implementation of CARP was speeded in order to meet the 10-year time frame. It distributed 58.25% of the total area target to be covered by the program.
In 1998, Ramos signed Republic Act No. 8532 to amend CAR and extend the program to another 10 years.
Carper and the future of agrarian reform in the Philippines. After Ramos extended the program to another 10 years, the new deadline of the CARP will expire in 2008, leaving 1.2 million farmer beneficiaries and 1.6 million hectares of agricultural land to be distributed to the farmers. In 2009, President Arroyo signed Republic Act No. 9700 or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension with Reforms or CARPER, the mandatory law that extends the deadline to 5 more years. In 2009 to 2014, CARPER has distributed a total of 1 million hectares of land to 900,000 farmer beneficiaries. After 27 years and 2 Aquino administrations, 500,000 hectares of land remain undistributed. Even with the combined efforts of the Department of Agrarian Reform or DAR and Department of Environment and Natural Resources, they are still incapable of fully achieving the goal of agrarian reform.